Hi guys, it's me, the Vibber, the original Vibber, the original pal, the original buddy pal, the original pal buddy. Maybe pal buddy be added later. Maybe not. It probably won't. But hey, what was I about to say? Today we're here to watch Invincible versus Dragon Ball. How far can he go? And this is not the Invincible series. This is Invincible, the character from the series Invincible. Big difference. Let's get on straight into it.
Shark VPN.
By Salad Bar. Go subscribe to him. Love Salad Bar.
Strong warrior alien.
Salad Sand, whatever we want to call him. He's the same guy.
It raises a pretty natural question. How would they compare in combat? Sure, we could do a video.
I just got Popeyes. I'm going to be eating it throughout this video. So yeah, chicken strips. Great. They're going to be great.
Video specifically about Viltrumites and Saiyans, but I've done other videos before where characters run through an entire gauntlet, trying to go through the entire story of Dragon Ball. So let's do the same here. We'll take Invincible himself.
Hard stop at Frieza,
the
Saga.
Story of Dragon Ball Z if he had
Hard stop at Frieza.
Let's go over some ground rules first.
I think he's gonna do some bullshit to where he gets past the Sand Saga, but he hard stops at Frieza. I'm saying it right now.
We're gonna be using two versions.
Hard to stop
the
itself.
TV version, and then once he taps out, we'll go to the comic version.
Oh, that TV nigga ain't doing shit. That TV motherfucker ain't doing shit.
We're gonna scale him against the opponents of each saga and see how well he does against
that TV
them.
one is not doing shit, bro.
Will basically become fighting.
He is a bitch.
Arcs will have other objectives on top of that. So
you know who's a bigger bitch than him though? You know who's a bigger bitch than him? Immortal. I don't know if y'all saw that last episode. If so, spoiler warning. Man, he just ripped the bro. Immortal is centuries ahead in time. You tell me he ain't getting no stronger, bro. Mark just ripped that man's head off, like no diffed him. He didn't take any damage. And it was over with. Oh my god.
Assume he passes through an arc if he could both
it was
keep the enemies
crazy
there and pass that objective. We're only gonna hard stop him when he has no reasonable path to victory.
Yep,
Even
see?
if the chance is small, as long as there's a logical way to win, we'll say he moves on.
He'll get past. He hard stops at Frieza then.
Have to compare him to Omni-Man a lot, which does make it a little tricky. Let's start with speed. He's going to be really fast compared to Dragon Ball characters, especially at this point in the story.
Okay.
Sure, later on in Dragon Ball, things.
Oh, this is in the early Dragon Ball. Okay.
In the beginning of the story,
he can get past early Dragon Ball, I think, pretty
you'll
easily.
See what I mean later on. Currently in the show, Mark's speed should be massively faster than light. For one, he's able to fly to the moon really quickly, but that's just kind of a relativistic feat. The real impressive thing here is when we compare him to Omni-Man. So when Mark and Nolan fought those Viltrumites, obviously they needed 3 people to take on Nolan alone. So these Viltrumites aren't on his level, but they're not too far off. Let's say they're equally strong, and if we really lowball them, we'll say since 3 Viltrumites were needed, that's 1/3 of Nolan's strength. So 1 Viltrumite, 1/3 Nolan. And of course, Mark was able to fight one of them alone. So let's say Mark's relative to one of them. So to keep things simple, we're going to assume he's 1/3 of Nolan's strength right now. Trust me, this will save a lot of headache later on. It's not really an accurate estimate, but it's a good guesstimate to work with. So as we know, Nolan could fly throughout space pretty quickly. Most impressively, the fact that he flew to Thraxa, which is a couple galaxies away from Earth.
Those bug women on that planet, they could get it. That's not even to hear me out. That's just me. I don't need you to hear it. I'm telling you, they can get it. That's not to hear me out. That's just, hey, I would.
And there's not an exact time span or an exact distance for this. Plus, he didn't directly fly from Earth to there. He just kind of flew around aimlessly along the way. So really he should be faster than what I'm about to say, but to get the lowest estimate for this, let's assume he flew directly from Earth to Thraxa. And let's say it took a month. So Thraxa is a couple galaxies away. Again, a very vague estimate, especially with how big that is. But the closest galaxy to us is 25,000 light years away. And he definitely flew way farther than that, in about a month. So like on the really low end, if we assume he flew 25,000 light years over the course of a month, that would mean he's 300,000 times the speed of light. And I cannot stress this enough, that's the lowest lowball because he didn't fly directly there, and that's using the estimate of 1 galaxy away. He flew multiple galaxies away. So likely he's billions of times faster than the speed of light at this point. His travel speed should also apply to his combat speed too, which applies to
I don't like how you put the Mortal Kombat version of it. It looks out of place.
Using that low estimate of saying
it looks very out of place. I'm disturbed.
Like, come on. If he's really millions of times faster than the speed of light, Mark being 1/3 of that is still incredibly impressive. So far in the show, we've seen Nolan rapidly destroy a civilization alone, and while we didn't actually get to see this, he told Mark that he stopped an asteroid as big as Texas before, which would make for a really impressive lifting.
It was this big!
And multiple times in his fights, he's using so much power that he's able to create explosions that can be visible from space, or vice versa, being visible on Earth from space. Also, when he fought Mark, he delivered a punch so powerful that it nearly destroyed a mountain, with Mark absorbing a lot of that impact. And that's one of his less impressive feats. So it's a little tough to say how destructive Nolan is at the moment.
He was beating the dog shit out of Mark, bro.
Country level. And that's
that shit was hilarious.
I personally would place him around continental, if not even high. Let's say Mark is around large country level. And I'll be completely honest up front, If you don't agree with the scaling, it really will not make a difference for this video because Dragon Ball has a huge jump in attack power right away, and you'll see what I mean as we get into
But like Mark is gonna be faster, and that'll be the reason he beats him. I can already see it coming.
But there's not really much to cover. He's just really strong.
That's probably how he's gonna beat fucking Cell. I hope he doesn't beat Cell. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I won't like it.
He's like a light version of a Saiyan. He can grow in battle, he gets stronger with rage, and he can live pretty long, which doesn't really matter for this fight. One obvious disadvantage is the fact that he doesn't have access to ki here. We're just dropping him in the verse as is, and working with that. So now, let's actually begin the gauntlet. Starting with the Pilaf gang. The objective here, hunt for the Dragon Balls before the Pilaf gang gets them, or at the very least, defeat the Pilaf gang. It goes without saying that this would be pretty easy for him. As long as he has a Dragon Ball radar, he'll be able to accomplish this pretty quickly, which might sound kind of tough, but I feel like Cecil would be able to at least work something up for him. But if he truly is working alone and he just knows he has to hunt for the Dragon Balls himself, well, even if he can't find them himself, stopping the Pilaf gang is going to be no problem. Next, we move on to the 21st World Tournament. The objective here in this arc is to just win the tournament. And this is actually going to be tougher than you think. So for most of the tournament, he's going to be perfectly fine. He should even be fine defeating Goku here regardless of if he transforms.
Jackie Chun though!
Believe it or not, Roshi would be the issue for him. The thing is, Mark greatly outspeeds him, and this wouldn't be a deathmatch here, so it's not like Roshi would try to kill him. I think he could actually find multiple ways to knock him out of the ring. But Max Power Roshi with the Kamehameha can destroy the moon, so pretty quick into this gauntlet, we found someone who's physically stronger than Mark.
But he's not faster.
He's also way slower than him. Like, the speed isn't even comparable here. So specifically for TV Mark, there's already someone who might be stronger than him. This will obviously change once we get to the comic scaling. Next is the Red Ribbon arc. Well, once again, this is pretty easy. The first few arcs of Dragon Ball start out pretty weak in terms of where everyone scales. Speed-wise, no one stands a chance.
It is niggas until like...
No one in this arc is going to be stronger than Max Power.
I say, like, everybody mostly is just niggas until like King Piccolo.
Really quick and really easy for him. Simply just fly around the base really fast, destroy everything, and that's that. Even people like Blue, Black, or Tao wouldn't be an issue for him. Now here's where things get more interesting. The 22nd World Tournament. The objective here, once more, just win. So Mark still has a major speed advantage here, but it's hard to say he's going to win. First of all, Goku and Tien were above Roshi's max power by this point. We're assuming Tien's his main threat here, and he's going to be moon level without wearing himself out like Roshi going full power. Tien at this point is a much more brutal fighter. So, of course, there's no killing allowed here, but he's probably not going to hold back against Mark. He'll beat him up.
Yeah, but I think he'd still like outspeed him, like.
But Mark's still going to be greatly faster than him, to the point where there's no way Tien could even hit him. Assuming speed was equal here, Tien would beat his ass, no doubt.
100%.
But Mark's going to be really carried.
Tien got hands, bro. Like, people don't really talk about Tien like that. Tien cold.
By the way, this all applies if he's fighting Goku.
Like I say, like I like during my read of the manga, like Tien real life can fucking fight. Like I knew he could fight already, but like reading the shit, watching the shit, completely different. That he can fight. He really should have been used more, man.
Tien's a more fitting opponent here, so that's what we're going with. The gap in power isn't so massive that he has no chance of hurting Tien, and if you were to highball Mark and say he's like multi-continental here, which I think is a really high highball, at least then he could probably even harm Tien. But even just using the estimate that we had before, he still has other ways to catch Tien off guard. Definitely a ton of ways to speed blitz him too and knock him out of the ring before he even gets to his full power. So, since he has multiple paths to victory here, we're gonna say he still moves on. Also, Mark still doesn't have the power to outright kill Piccolo or even some of his sons because they're stronger than the previous opponents. Unlike a tournament, this is a death match. These people are trying to kill him. So speed blitzing them and knocking them out of the ring isn't gonna work here.
Speed blitz him, snap his fucking, just snap his neck.
Advantage because, well, he's gonna hit gently.
That's all you gotta do. Just
his opponents
quickly.
One way he could beat his opponents is just by grabbing onto them and then dragging them out into space, where he could survive but his opponent can't. As for speed, in the comic he's going to be faster than where he was in the show, obviously. Like, one impressive example of speed here is that Nolan was able to fly 65 million light years in 2 weeks, going from Earth to the Virgo supercluster, which is way more impressive than his last feat that we discussed in the speed section, which was already really impressive to begin with. And end of comic Mark is comparable to or beyond that in speed. Not that it really makes much of a difference though, because he already does significantly outspeed Dragon Ball at this point. Sure, if we're comparing him with Super, then that's a different story, but at this point in Dragon Ball's story, no one's even close to a fraction of their speed at the moment. Attack powers where things get more interesting, because obviously that's a little closer. And unlike in the TV show, Mark does have more actual destructive feats for himself, and they're easier to quantify. Okay. The most famous feat of his is him destroying Viltrum. So what we know about Viltrum is that it's pretty similar in size to Earth, and of course Mark didn't destroy it alone. Nolan was there and so was Thetis. To make things easier, it's reasonable to assume that all three of them put in equal effort. So think of it like this, each of them had the power to destroy 1/3 of Earth. at least at this point in the story, and he also grows above this later on too. So on the low end, it's pretty widely accepted he's small planet level based on that feat, and I also think it's reasonable to push him to planetary.
I don't like his chin.
By the end of the story, he's stronger than that.
Why didn't he grow a mustache?
He's only going to need like 3 times the strength to actually do that alone. So he's
you choose not to have a mustache?
Possibly to the level of an Earthbuster by now.
Because all the Viltrumites have one. Like it's
when comparing to Dragon Ball, we're going to have to use
they have really nice
like
mustaches too. Like I like
if
I could grow like a full on like I mean like of course I have a little tiny one. Pause. But like I have a little tiny mustache, and it's like, bro, if I can get a mustache, it's gonna look like a Viltrumite. It's gonna look like Nolan's. I would love that. That shit would be hard. Well, I'm black. Would that look right on me?
And pretty much the same thing.
Why did he still have his turban
on? The objective
on?
in this tournament would be to win, which
Had
would be
already
just
undressed
beating
by that
Piccolo
point.
Jr. And from King Piccolo to here, there wasn't really a massive power jump, so pretty much the same outcome as the last arc. A pretty easy win.
The fucking scream.
Mark actually might have a challenge. Sure, he still greatly outspeeds Raditz. Actually, greatly is an understatement, because by now, Raditz is really only brushing upon relativistic speed. Even highballing Dragon Ball speeds at this point, the highest estimates are barely into the faster than light range.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you have Mark, who's over 1,000,000 times faster than light here, so not even comparison. Suppressed Piccolo with weights on can casually destroy the moon with one attack, and Raditz is obviously multiple times beyond that level. The rule of thumb that people like to go by is that a power level of 10,000 is required to destroy a planet. But that's in a guidebook and not in the main story, and it's also relatively inconsistent with the series too. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Here's a good way to look at it. Piccolo with a power level of around 322 blew up the moon with little effort. Roshi with a lot of effort while being a lot weaker than Piccolo at that point was able to do this too. His power level is around 1500, which is nearly 5 times beyond Piccolo and over 8 times beyond Roshi's if that power level was accurate. Not to mention, power levels aren't always linear, so that
power levels
is
are
probably
bullshit.
If you want proof for this, Bulma's power level in the main story was listed as 12. If power levels were truly linear,
way
that
above
means you're
average
only 12 as
human.
strong as Piccolo, who's a casual moonbuster by this point, which would mean 12 Bulmas could blow up a moon. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. Or like the farmer with the shotgun, for example, his power level was 5, making him about a 60th as strong as Piccolo in terms of raw power level, which would mean he's 1/60th moonbuster. That doesn't work. There's way more examples you could use for this, but point being, power levels aren't linear. So on the surface, you might think, okay, Raditz is about 5 times as strong as suppressed Piccolo, but really he should be stronger than that given how power levels go. So you can't really use power levels to gauge destructive feats. One of the whole points of Toriyama doing power levels is that they're not really accurate. So using them for scaling isn't really great either. Now, the point of that tangent was, I think Raditz is a planetary level fighter. Given the fact that he's many times beyond a moonbuster, and the whole thing about a 10,000 power level being needed to destroy a planet isn't really accurate. This also doesn't even take into account the fact that he could turn into a great ape and get 10 times stronger than before. Although, Mark is still going to win here. The power should be close enough where he can be fine in this fight, and he still has the huge speed advantage. But I think by this point of the story, Mark's actually facing people that are around his level of strength.
Does Mark know how to fight though, or is he just like
dragging him into space and killing
punching
him that way? That could still work. But in terms of raw strength,
did he learn how to fight? Because he still don't know how to fight at the moment.
He's not going to have access to key attacks and things like that. Now we move on to the next part of the Saiyan saga, Vegeta and Nappa. And I guess the Cybermen as well. Now, Nappa and Vegeta are obviously planetary. Unlike Raditz, where it's a little bit vague and you can kind of argue against that, these two are solidly planet level. And I'm not saying that because of that filler scene of Vegeta destroying planet Arlia, it's just that basic scaling would put them at this point. Not to mention the fact that Vegeta was about to blow up Earth towards the end of the arc anyways.
Okay.
So they're unambiguously planetary level, but significantly slower than Mark still. The thing is, unlike Raditz, since they're stronger to begin with, if either of them goes Great Ape, they would be too strong for Mark to even harm. However, if he did know to go for their tail and cut it off, that could work, but only if he actually knew about that. And I can't state this enough, Mark's speed advantage here is still insane. Unless Cecil backs him up here and gives him the info to cut off the tail, or like he just finds out due to dumb luck, he can't win. The way I'd see the fight go is that he's not going to blow up the planet, but the Saiyans definitely would try and do that. Not that it would kill Mark, but in the worst case, they could threaten to destroy the planet, then get in their spaceships and leave. Speed is so insane that, purely from a speed standpoint, Mark would be able to contend with people later on in Dragon Ball Z and even the beginning of Super. But in terms of raw strength, he's outclassed by the time he meets Raditz. And unlike the fighters in Dragon Ball, he doesn't have the same variety of moves that they have. So I think it's kind of fair to stop Mark here because if we keep him going, the best he'll do is just fly away from everybody. So he's not necessarily going to die in these fights, but he's not going to win them.
Captain Ginyu would kick it. Raccoon would kick his ass.
And who knows? Maybe the TV show will
Would Goldo kick his ass? Goldo would probably kick his ass.
But at least as of now, TV Mark can make it to the 22nd World Tournament, and Comic Mark can probably make it up to Raditz, although things will start getting really tough really quickly. The best thing working in his favor is the fact that he can survive in space for a bit, but obviously that won't matter once he
does not get. I thought he'd push him to Frieza. I thought he'd push him there.
He can't breathe in space, he could just hold his breath in space and survive as long as that lasts. So technically he can't just live in space forever. That will only work for so long. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. As usual, I know it's a power scaling video, so keep it civil. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. What was I gonna say?
Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Bye.